Welcome back to the Lost Tactician, where we venture into the shadowed corridors of military history to uncover the tactics, the strategies, and, the iron will that shaped civilizations. Today we're stepping back more than 2,000 years, into an age when bronze gave way to iron, when tribal societies built monuments to survival that would outlast empires. Imagine a fortress so impenetrable, so ingeniously designed, that for centuries no army, no matter how mighty, could ever breach its walls. What secrets did ancient Iron Age engineers know that allowed them to build structures that stood undefeated? Prepare to uncover the forgotten brilliance behind these incredible, unyielding defenses. The Iron Age, spanning roughly from 1200 BC to the Roman conquests, is often overshadowed by the grandeur of classical civilizations. Yet within this period lies a military genius that modern archaeology is only beginning to fully appreciate. Across the wind-swept hills of Britain, the craggy highlands of Scotland, and the forested plateaus of Central Europe, ancient communities engineered defensive structures that redefined what it meant to be impregnable. These weren't mere walls thrown up in haste. They were calculated masterpieces of engineering, psychology, and strategic foresight, fortifications that invaders chose to avoid rather than assault. The question that haunts us is deceptively simple. How did societies without gunpowder, without siege engines comparable to later Roman technology, without even written blueprints, create strongholds that remained unconquered? The answer lies not in a single innovation, but in a symphony of tactical brilliance that wove together earth, stone, timber, and terrain into something far greater than the sum of its parts. Picture yourself as a warrior approaching Maiden Castle in what is now Dorset, England. Before you stretches not a simple wall, but a landscape transformed into a nightmare of obstacles. The first thing that strikes you is the sheer complexity. Multiple concentric rings of earthen ramparts rising like waves frozen in time, each separated by ditches carved so deep that to descend into one is to lose sight of the sky. These multi-valet earthworks, some featuring 3 or even 4 defensive lines, forced attackers into a brutal arithmetic of exhaustion. You scramble down the first ditch, loose chalk and earth sliding beneath your feet, then claw your way up a slope that seems to steepen with every step. At the crest, instead of victory, you face another rampart and another beyond that. All the while, defenders above rain down stones, spears, and sling bullets with deadly accuracy. The genius lies in the geometry. Each successive barrier is higher than the last, creating overlapping fields of fire that leave no dead ground, no place to shelter. The construction techniques themselves reveal sophisticated engineering knowledge. Dry stone walling, perfected through generations of trial and error, created ramparts that could absorb the impact of battering attempts without catastrophic failure. Unlike mortared walls that crumble when breached, these interlocking stones distributed force across the entire structure. More remarkable still was the practice of timber lacing, where horizontal timbers were threaded through the stone like reinforcing bars through concrete, binding the wall into a unified, flexible defense. In some regions, particularly in Scotland and France, fort builders took this a step further through vitrification, deliberately setting these timber-laced ramparts ablaze at such intense temperatures that the stones themselves fused into a glassy, nearly indestructible mass. Modern experiments have shown this required temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, sustained for hours. The result was a barrier that defied both weather and weapons, an artificial stone that could turn aside the heaviest blows. But stone and timber alone do not make a fortress unbreachable. The true masterstroke of Iron Age military architecture lay in how these engineers read the land itself, transforming natural topography into an active participant in defense. Hill forts were invariably positioned on the highest ground available, not merely for visibility, but to weaponize gravity itself. An army ascending steep slopes arrives at the walls exhausted, their formations broken, their shield walls disordered. The concept of choke points was understood with remarkable sophistication. Entrances to these forts were rarely simple gates. Instead, they wound through elaborate passages designed to funnel attackers into narrow corridors, where numbers became a liability rather than an asset. At many sites, the approach required invaders to turn their shield side toward the defenders, exposing their vulnerable right flanks. Some entrances featured deliberate curves that prevented the use of battering rams at speed, while others incorporated overlapping walls that created killing zones where defenders from three sides could converge fire on anyone attempting to force entry. Archaeological evidence from sites across Britain reveals entrance works so complex they functioned as fortresses within fortresses, multi-chambered gauntlets that could be defended room by room, even if the outer gate fell. Water, that most fundamental requirement of life, was carefully integrated into defensive planning. Protected wells within fort enclosures or strategic positioning near permanent springs meant these communities could outlast besiegers without the desperate vulnerability that drought imposed on so many ancient strongholds. Some forts even incorporated hidden water channels or galleries that allowed defenders to access streams under cover, denying enemies the opportunity to cut off supplies. The message to any potential attacker was clear: we can wait you out season after season while your army withers in our shadow. These fortifications teach us that ancient peoples possessed a tactical sophistication that rivals our own, achieved through observation, adaptation, and hard-won experience rather than mathematical models or computer simulations. They understood force multiplication through terrain, the psychology of exhaustion, and the defensive value of uncertainty. Many of these structures were never breached, not because they were never tested, but because they made the cost of victory so steep that armies chose alternate routes, negotiated passage, or simply withdrew. In a world without rapid communications or supply lines, bypassing a stronghold was often the wiser tactical choice. The unbreached status of many Iron Age forts speaks to the ultimate success of any defense: to make battle unnecessary by making victory impossible. Today, as we study these ancient earthworks, softened by millennia of wind and rain, we glimpse principles that remain relevant: defense in depth, the integration of natural advantages, the creation of decision points that favor the defender. These concepts echo through modern military architecture and even into cybersecurity, where layered defenses and choke points protect digital fortresses from invisible invaders. The Iron Age engineers who shaped these hills into weapons understood something fundamental. The best victory is the battle never fought, and the strongest fortress is the one never attacked. If this journey into forgotten tactical genius resonated with you, fortify our community. Hit that like button, share this video with fellow history enthusiasts, and subscribe to The Lost Tactician. Join us as we continue uncovering the hard-won lessons of survival and strategy that echo across the centuries. Until next time, remember, the past is never truly lost, only waiting to be rediscovered.